Have you ever wondered about some of the odd and bizarre looking relics of the ancient past? Why do they look like sophisticated modern day technology? Were such artifacts left for humanity, or did humans try to mimic and recreate the marvelous wonders they witnessed from the heavens? Join hosts and authors Joe P. Landry and L. Sheldon Oldford as they discuss these intriguing questions about ancient relics with special guest Aaron Long from Ancient Astronaut Theory Facebook page. Could ancient civilizations have possessed advanced knowledge or even encountered extraterrestrial beings? In this latest episode, we scrutinize out-of-place artifacts that challenge conventional historical timelines and offer a compelling narrative that may reshape the way we think about ancient history and extraterrestrial influences. Prepare to be intrigued as we delve into the technological mysteries of ancient artifacts such as the enigmatic Ubaid figurines which sport reptilian features. We discuss the possible existence of intelligent beings or their symbolic representations in ancient cultures and connect these artifacts with ancient civilizations. They prompt us to question, was there an extraterrestrial influence?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Alien Talk Podcast. This is the show where we discuss all things about aliens and UFOs, and as always, where we push the limits of our understanding. Joe Landry and Roy Olford here, once again to seek out the truth and find the facts pertaining to the highly discussed issues about extraterrestrial life and the existence of UFOs. So tonight, our emphasis on mythology shifts from science fiction stories to actual archaeological discoveries. Remnants of antiquity that have been unearthed, some all the way back to the Victorian era. They are unusual objects as they seem foreign to the others that have been recovered from the same period. Instead of looking like other relics, they seem to be like something that doesn't belong there, like something out of place in time. So could these oddities resemble things that came from someone other than our ancient ancestors? Could they be not of human design and imagination, but of extraterrestrial intervention? Could they be alien artifacts? We'll examine some of the more obscure and arcane pieces that have been studied by scientists and have left many of them baffled, as their origins seem to defy our understanding of history. Okay, just to be straight on this, when we say alien artifacts, we want to make sure no one misunderstands us and thinks that they are pieces of elaborate equipment technology from another planet that have been unearthed by archaeologists, like something from an Indiana Jones movie. We're not talking about something like a decked out spacecraft wreckage buried out near the Acropolis in Greece. As cool as that would be, first, to date, no such thing has ever been discovered. And second, if it was, the information about it would be deemed highly classified by the governments of the world, and we would probably never even be able to know anything about it. So these things that we are really talking about are not artifacts like that. No smoking guns as much as we wish. Instead, they are relics built by human hands that show that their makers possess some kind of understanding about science that, as far as we know about history, people wouldn't have obtained back then. These are called by the generic name of out-of-place artifacts, and they are objects that are significantly ahead of their times. Ones that are, I think, prominently stick out are the Antikythera mechanism and the Baghdad battery. And the question that they bequeath upon us is, do such artifacts, at least indirectly, point to some outside and otherworldly influence? So to join us in the exploration of this subject is our good friend and inspirational mentor from all the way across the pond, Aaron Long. As you all know, Aaron has undertaken several research endeavors from all over from over in the UK that pertain to Mesopotamian archaeology and Ice Age geology. And he maintains a worldwide following on his Ancient Astronaut Theory Facebook page, through which he avails much of his information. And he has also been on our show several times to share his expertise with us. So, Aaron, it is truly an honor and a privilege to have you here with us once again as we delve into a mysterious and one might even say controversial topic. So welcome, my friend, and thank you for being with us at this very late hour over there, or maybe it's a very early hour, whichever it may be.
Yeah, no, it's a complete honor and privilege to be on, season 10 with you guys. I always love being on, and I think it's going to be an intriguing show. Yeah, I mean, it is early hours in the morning here, so it's like 2:20 a.m. But I've got the coffee on, so
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
ready.
You don't drink tea?
I do actually drink tea, but tonight I'm drinking strong coffee,
Oh,
guys.
there you go.
Nice one, Joe. Bring up tea for the Brit.
That's right, and crumpets, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like tea too. Sometimes I drink tea as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Aaron, always truly a pleasure having you on with us. Since you were last with us, you've been very busy because I've been watching your Ancient Astronaut Theory Facebook page quite a bit, liking it, loving it. And
Thank you.
you gave us some tremendous review too for our latest novel, by the way, that Battle Planet AD, Relic of the Gods, and that was on Goodreads. And thank you for that. So, and we want to just say we really appreciate what you're doing for us. You're really helping us out. But you've also been on there doing quite a bit, or like for movies or something, like interviews, right? Like, how's that been going for you?
Oh, right. So
Hey, interviews?
yeah, and first and foremost, you're more than welcome, guys. I mean, I want to thank you as well for personally sending me the book, Battle AD, Relic of the Gods. Was it Battle Planet, Relic of the Gods? It's a beautiful book, beautiful hardcover book, and a fantastic read. To boot. So, and what I loved is your simplicity in writing. Anybody can pick that book up and enjoy it. I also love the aspects of how you based your characters on what I perceived as real life personalities. From back in the day, from Hynek to Zawi Hawass, maybe in the Egyptology field. So that was a nice little touch on your part if it was deliberate, that is.
Thanks.
So I urge anybody who's got an interest in alternative archaeology or the ancient alien theory, ancient astronaut theory, then go and grab that book. You're not going to be disappointed. So, and I'm not just saying that, guys, because I'm on the show. It's genuinely a real good book, and I thank you as well for your personal message in the book to me. So.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. So yeah, we've been following your Ancient Astronaut Theory Facebook page and noticed that the past several posts now, Aaron, they've displayed some like remarkable images of relics that were found in different parts of the world. And these are pieces that were dug up or somehow found, I guess, among the ruins on or sites that belong to ancient peoples. So they're not like old toys buried in someone's backyard, right? And they were located in sites of like the remains of settlements that date back thousands of years, tens of thousands of years probably. And one that is of particular interest is something called the Istanbul rocket. As its name suggests, it is on display in Istanbul, but was found in an area known as Tushpa in eastern Turkey back in 1973. Since then, it has caused quite a stir in the academic community because it is a stone carving dated to about 3,000 years old, and it depicts what seems to look like a Mercury or a Gemini space capsule with a man seated inside of it, and the resemblance is rather uncanny. It even has what seem to be three thrusters on the back of it, and
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, and now you pointed out, Aaron, if this is not a hoax, then and it doesn't seem to be, as it is or has undergone testing, then the maker of it is trying to convey a message without words about what was seen back then. I mean, what would that message be, and how certain are we about that?
Just to touch on what you said, Laurie, about the artifact being on show within the Istanbul Archaeology Museum. It was on show, and they have now put it in the basement, out of show. And that's due to the fact of too many people asking questions and uncomfortable questions at that. They just don't have any answer as to why this like we call it an Istanbul rocket. It's known why this rocket exists and is 3,000 plus years old. So what they've done is they've put it out of the way, taken out of the cabinet, and we're in the scenario of don't look here, there's nothing to see here scenario, which is tragic. Quite clearly, the artisan, the ancient artisan who created this artifact, was trying to convey that they witnessed technology that we have at our disposal today back then. If you look closely at the Istanbul rocket, like you said, you have the three exhausts at the back, which would propel the object in question. You also see the being with it in a seated position that you would see an astronaut seated today inside a rocket. Right. And this being has what looks to be a pressurized spacesuit. The head is missing, so we can't see a helmet because there's no head on. Unfortunately, there's no head on the body. But it is quite clearly what looks to be identical to that of a modern day astronaut inside a rocket, and also manipulating controls, much like.
When did they take it off of display? That must have just been pretty recent.
I'm not sure exactly when, so I'm not going to go on record to say when, but they have now taken it out off display. They've also sort of thrown the hoax scenario out there that this is a hoax. It's not, it's quite clearly not a hoax, or they wouldn't have displayed it in the first place.
All right.
It seems like they're trying to do one of those hidden archaeological or hidden history type things again from us.
Exactly, and it's interesting to note where it was discovered. It's discovered, like you said, in Tushpa in Turkey. Mm-hmm. We know little to nothing about the civilization in Tushpa. So once again, there's a somewhat mystique surrounding this unheard of or little known about civilization of antiquity. So
yeah. So the Istanbul rocket is just one of several pieces that resemble a flying craft or a spaceship.
Absolutely.
There's a Quimbaya jet that it comes from Colombia, and it was
the Quimbaya flyer, yeah.
Quimbaya jet from Colombia around 1905. That dates to roughly 500 AD. There's a Sahara bird discovered near Giza in Egypt in 1898, and that dates to about 200 BC. The designs of these objects have actually been demonstrated to be aerodynamically accurate. Larger scale models of them have been made to the exact ratios of the dimensions of these pieces, and they have been made to fly. So that leaves us wondering how the creators of them knew about the mathematical interrelationship of the sizes and shapes of the wings to make as accurate as a real airplane wing. Such knowledge of fluid mechanics didn't come about until the 17th century, and heavier than air flight didn't happen until the 20th century. So Aaron, it seems that though the ancients did have a scientific understanding of this, and it became lost at some point. Do you think these artifacts preserve a story through the artistic tradition about the far distant past, perhaps even in prehistoric times, where advanced technological machinery did exist on Earth?
Yes, so I'm more than convinced that what our ancient ancestors witnessed, they depicted and they created for many generations to come, being us, and we're looking at it right now. I mean, these artifacts are no, they're no accident. This one, children sat around just making toys out of stone. They were depicting what they saw. Is the aerodynamics of these crafts and the way they're depicted, which eerily resemble that of which we have today, like I said, is no accident.
Right.
Yeah, and you and I were talking real quick through email and talking about going way back. You mentioned something about a bullet hole or something that was found in a skull.
That's correct. Yeah, it's a bullet hole found in a Neanderthal skull. I mean, like we spoke, I was going to touch upon that on a separate episode, completely separate and put that with the footprints that coexist with dinosaurs as well. You know, we have scientists in Germany examining these Neanderthal skulls,
Right.
and they clearly stated that this is a projectile at high speed, being a bullet.
Yeah.
And I know people are probably listening to this going, "This is nuts," you know, this guy on drugs. You know, we have scientists backing these claims up.
Yeah.
Those scientists, may I add, were quickly silenced.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
obviously, like I said, that's another story for another episode.
yeah. Well, I know we touched on it a little while back, but yeah, there's something to really delve into deeper because I'm sure there's more. But I mean, oddly enough, the region where the Istanbul rocket was discovered is the place where the kingdom of Urartu is thought. I think that's how you pronounce it, but to have dwelled at one time. And it was in the area of northern Iran and eastern Turkey and was there around the 9th century BC until it was conquered by the Medes around 550 BC. So the Istanbul rocket dates to about that time frame. And it was probably the Eurasians who made it. Now, I'll get your thoughts on that in a second, but in this region, in and around Mesopotamia, we have the cradle of civilization,
Yeah.
and which we all know about, and as it is called, and this is where the Sumerians, the Akkadians, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, and some others all flourished from the 48 to the 3rd century BC. But before them is one that we know quite little about, as it seems to predate the Sumerians, and that's going back beyond 6000 BC, and they are known as the Ubadians.
It's
And
in this over, yeah.
yeah, and while they left behind no textual evidence, I don't think they did create a very strange, or they did create some very strange looking figurines.
They did.
So, Aaron, I mean, you do have photos of them on your Facebook, and I saw them, and of course, I saw those photos before. And anyone who sees them can't help but notice that they have reptilian faces, human bodies, like I guess they're like lizard-like faces. But does this mean that the makers of these figurines had some creatures that looked like and then tried to replicate their images in the form of small statues?
I'm glad you brought this up, Rory. I was hoping you were going to bring it up. I'm very you did. Yeah, the Ubaid figurines. So the first excavation of these figurines was conducted in 1919 by Henry Hall. It was only in 1927 that a larger excavation took place by British archaeologist Sir Leonard Woolley. So it's the 1927 digs and excavations that gained all the attention. And these figurines are extremely interesting. They're anthropomorphic figurines that they unearthed up to the hundreds of these figurines. They discovered them in the city of Interestingly, this city was a bustling metropolis back in the day, and it was said to be that this city was where gods walked among men. Does this sound familiar? Just like in Egypt, pre-dynastic Egypt, when the gods walked among men. And here we have these figurines clearly depicted with some are female, carrying out female activities and breastfeeding their young. This is clearly depicted within these small statuettes. They're beautifully preserved as well, due to the dry climate of these regions. So we're very fortunate and lucky to see how well preserved these figurines are. And then you have the male figurines with obviously male genitalia. This was clear as day. So you can see the attention to detail when these artisans created these figurines. Another interesting point on these figurines are the elongated craniums, and the coffee bean like eyes that we see all over the world. We see these same beings in Mohenjo-Daro. We see whole families of them feeding their young.
Yeah,
You know, so
Native
interesting.
American culture has creatures like that where the eyes look very serpentine and lizard-like. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
which
and the Ubaid figurines certainly seem to support a hypothesis about the existence of intelligent and sentient reptiloid and humanoid creatures from the remote past. But we have to ask in what way? I mean, did they physically exist, or do they represent a theological construct to which the ancient people adhered? We can't say for sure, but it seems that like there was at least a psychological association that was once made between the attributes of reptiles, particularly the snake, and the notion of godliness. And the same can be said for the capacity to traverse the sky and the notion of God, with the notion of godliness, the idea of godliness and being able to travel through the heavens was kind of synonymous with the ancient people. So, Aaron, we have to ask, well, why would that be? Why and how did such image impress early humans so as to think of it as being related to the divine?
yeah, that's a great question. Great question, Joe. So when we look at the elongated craniums of the Paracas people, again, a civilization we know little to literally zero about. We've got physical craniums which have been tested. Many people go, well, you know, it's the product of head binding. Well, it's not, because they've been tested. They've been tested. The Satral Sutra on the skulls are completely different from any known Homo sapien. So straight away, straight off the bat, you have a distinctive genetic difference between us and them.
Yeah.
So we have physical evidence of these elongated people on Earth in our remote past. These skulls eerily resemble those of the Ubaid figurines found in the city of Ur. So not only have we got artifacts to show these unknown beings, we have physical bodies and physical craniums to prove that they once walked, on this planet. So we it's like I said, it's not just figurines. We have physical anatomies of these beings.
Well, they're doing what our ancestors are doing, what we do today. So they didn't have photographs to take, cell phones, and so they're making these things. So which I believe they're probably trying to depict either the Anunnaki or the reptilian race, or probably they're both actually. And so because a narrative of the existence of such a race of beings is preserved in the Hebrew Bible.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, there is, well, the Nephilim in Genesis 6, 1 through 5, who, as we know, were giants according to the old scriptures, the biblical scriptures, and of course Nephilim in the original Hebrew, and they were the offspring of the Watchers and human women. So it was a hybrid race that was created, which I believe that was us. And there are the Raphaim in Numbers chapter 13, which are also giants and are said to be the sons of Anak. Well, Anak is derived from Anunnaki. They're also referenced several times throughout the book of Deuteronomy and Joshua. And so we find this theme throughout the mythological traditions from the cradle of civilization, such as Egypt, Mesopotamia, and in which the artwork is almost obsessive toward the idea of gods coming down from the sky. And now, with this idea of depictions of aerial technology like the Istanbul rocket, there is an object that was discovered in Egypt in 1936 within the tomb of Sabu, the son of Pharaoh Anajib, and dates to around 3000 BC. Now, it is known as the schist disk, and sometimes called the Sabu disk. And this thing looks like it could be some kind of steering wheel or a hydraulic impeller. Now, Aaron, being that it is made of schist, which is it's a delicate mineral that is difficult to cut, by the way, and curve with crude tools. But what does that say about the way it was crafted so precisely at a time which stone and bronze tools were all that were around at the time?
Yeah, well, exactly. So we're faced with another conundrum from our ancient world. We are told that this disc is nothing but an incense holder. You know, it's
Yeah.
just absolutely insane. This this advanced art, this advanced technology. I'm going to call it advanced technology because that's exactly what it is. Is on show in the Cairo Museum for anybody to see if if they ever go to Cairo, is readily available to look at, which surprises me because usually that these sort of out of place artifacts are just swept underneath the rug and
Yeah.
doesn't fit in with our narrative, so we have to sort of put it out of the way.
I want to see that.
I mean, when you look at this thing, you straight away think to me it's part of something larger. It's, this artifact isn't a singular artifact, that there was something that went with it. It's part of a large, it could be a machine, it could have been a massive machine, it could, it was something much more advanced for that time period, and this was either attached to it or
Yeah, and according to James Kofi at historydefined.com, article dated March 8th, 2023, schist is very brittle, and its name comes from the Greek word to split. And while there have been other relics found or made of it, this is the only one ever found that exhibits such precision in how it was cut, carved, and shaped. There are no other designs like it, and it seems to have been formed flawlessly and perfectly at the first making. There are no other ones like it. There are no duplicates. Nothing resembles it even closely.
well, I mean,
Oh,
sorry to cut
listen,
you off there.
it was found during the first dynasty of Egypt, which is a very long time ago. Apparently, even with our computer-controlled milling and grinding and cutting machinery of today, it is an extremely tedious task to replicate the shape of the schist disk. So again, this is an out-of-place artifact. And does it tell a story about lost technology that existed on Earth, perhaps even long before the first dynasty? So, Lori, as perfectly formed as it is, we really don't know what it is meant to be used for, right?
Well, no, I don't think so. I mean, the disc is thought by some scholars to have been used for brewing beer and to mix and mash the grains with hot water and such. So it was a mixing tool. I think is what they mostly believe it is now, with two mixing blades. We use like we use on a handheld mixer, I guess. Like the ones we watched our moms mix cake mix with, and we lick the icing off.
Right.
We all love doing that, didn't we? So.
Yeah.
That's
Well, this thing was, I guess it was similar because they mixed other foods and like meats and fruit with with the grains. Now here's a shocker. How did an ancient civilization that far back know how to make this kind of tool to do all that I just mentioned? Remember, there are Sumerian cylinder seals, and they're depicting these beings, these large beings, like sitting on a throne, and they are much taller than ordinary humans, which are like 6 feet. But they're like half their size, handing the plow to them, which indicates that the gods provided the tools to them for cultivation and agriculture. So perhaps this schist disc is something replicated from one of those said tools, right, Aaron?
I mean, yeah. To add to that, Laurie, this artifact must have been of extreme importance, and it had huge significance because it was buried with a high priest. Sabi was a high priest of ancient Egypt. So to have been buried with him, this artifact must have been of high significance. If it was, it could have been something to grind up the grains, or something to aid in food preparation, or what have you. But for me, there's just too much significance regarding
that is a good
where
point
it was
that
discovered.
you bring up there, Aaron, because why would if it's just a mixer for food, why would that be buried with, a priest? I mean, what would be the purpose of essentially burying a kitchen utensil with the priest? It must have served some other purpose. Perhaps food preparation was part of it, but there was maybe some ritualistic importance to it as well.
Well, if you since you brought that up, just think about the meal preparations that were made for God back in during the Levitical sacrifice times. I mean, that it was holy to have forks and spoons on the altar of sacrifice. So they made those sacrifices were made to honor God and to actually feed God. And the Bible actually says it was food. It was food for the gods. So I could see the importance of something like that possibly being of a high religious value and respected as such. Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I completely get your point, Laurie, and it's great to be, to have friendly debate. I just think we would have found more, everyday utensils within tombs, which we just don't see on a large scale, a large
True.
enough scale.
True.
So, well, some of these artifacts seem to suggest that their makers knew of technology from beyond their place and time. There are some that suggest they knew about what the world looked like in a highly accurate way, even without the modern geodetic surveying and cartographic techniques that we employ today at our disposal. So that brings us to something called the Piri Reis map. This is a medieval nautical chart that was found in some forgotten archive, I believe in 1929, and it shows in painstaking detail the outline of the coast of Antarctica as it would have looked if the ice is not there. It supposedly was drafted in 1513 by an Ottoman Navy admiral named Piri Reis. And the question raises, how was he able to make such a map of the coastline if it is and was back in the 16th century completely covered and obscured and thus invisible due to massive sheets of ice that conceal it? So, Aaron, how could Piri Reis have had access to such information that even today, with our capability of aerial surveillance and ground penetrating radar, is tedious and often with questionable reliability?
Yeah, the Piri Reis map has to be one of my favorites and one of the most mind-boggling pieces we have on Earth today, and we're still just as mystified now as we were back then. So like you said, 1929, scholars working in Turkey's Topkapi Palace Museum discovered a part section of an early 16th century Turkish world map, and is made of gazelle skin, believe it or not. So with this map, we only have a section of the map, but it's what's depicted on the map that's really interesting, and the time frame in which it's depicted is actually signed by a Turkish admiral, Navy admiral by the name of Piri Reis, hence the name the Piri Reis map, right? And it was obviously dated in 1513. That's also on the map. So that would mean that it was 21 years after Christopher Columbus discovered the New World, which is interesting in itself. Here's the kicker. So what, mainstream scholars say, well, Piri Reis signed it. It was Piri Reis that sort of, drew the map up and he signed it, etc. Blah, 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 blah. What they don't often talk about is the fact that Piri Reis himself said that he had sourced 20 previous source maps and charts to construct the map itself. So we have from the horse's mouth, being Piri Reis, that he was looking at older maps in order to construct this map on gazelle skin we call the Piri Reis map today.
And don't some of these maps actually go back all the way to the Ptolemaic period, like probably like a 2nd century BC? They're pretty old maps that he referenced.
Yeah, he's telling us that he was sourcing much more older source maps. So the question is, what were these older source maps? Where are these source maps? But like I said, we have it from the horse's mouth. So who are we to say, you know, well, no, he didn't. Well, he did because he told us he did.
Right.
You know, there'd be no reason to lie. If anything, if anything, Piri Reis would have said that, you know, it was me that discovered the map or created the map. He would want the full.
Right. And I think some of those older maps that the theory is that, you know, the Ptolemaic maps that may have been mentioned or been, you know, the original maps which were copied later on may have been lost in the Library of Alexandria when it was burned in the 5th century. So
That's what I personally believe.
so what we have are the copies from that, but they believe that the original ones that were made even further back, you know, 2nd century BC, and they were kept in the Library of Alexandria and are lost to time because the library was, of course, as we know, destroyed.
Yeah, we lost so much of our ancient world, you know, through the burning of the Library of Alexandria. Is just unquestionable to think what we could have been looking at had that not happened. But here's the real kicker in the mystery of the map. You know, it's got a presence of what appears to be a representation of Antarctica 300 years before it was discovered. So, you know, even more mind-boggling than that is, you know, is the Antarctica landmass is depicted with no ice sheets. So, you know, the cartographer was depicting Antarctica when it was fertile, when it was a fertile crescent, so to speak, fertile, green and lush. So that you know, I was talking about 300 years difference just a minute ago. Now we're going back 6,000 plus years to, you know, for the end of the last ice age, so to speak, which was 12,500 years ago. So, you know, who was this cartographer before the, you know, that created this map before the Antarctic was covered in ice?
Well, who were the
was
travelers who went down there? That's the baffling thing. Is like you said, 300 years later is when we attest the discovery of Antarctica. I mean, you know, the 20th century.
Yeah.
And we see what an effort it is to go down there. It is not an easy trip. It is life-threatening. It is dangerous. Even today, I imagine thousands of years ago, take a ship down into the Southern Ocean would just be very dangerous, very difficult, almost, you know, the deterring factor. Like, why bother doing this? What so much is at risk in terms of life and limb? But they did. Somebody or some group of people did travel there and were able to not only see the land but actually chart it.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
Aaron,
exactly.
well, Aaron,
Sorry.
when you mentioned going back like 12,000 plus years ago, well, that brings to mind the you know, what if that's around the time I guess Atlantis would possibly have existed, and it could have been that those maps were created by Atlanteans that knew about the South or Antarctica and sailed around it and did these maps. Or as Joe mentioned earlier with the Kumbaya artifacts earlier, you know, how they were modeled and flew. You know, not only them, but the Egyptian Saqqara bird and of course relics like the Istanbul rocket. If these were engineered aircraft from antiquity, then you know it is possible that the Peary's map could have been drawn up by an extraterrestrial piloting one of these such crafts, even up to 500, 700 years ago. And I say this because, you know, I was visiting a museum in Seattle and one year and saw a depiction of the Earth going through its climate, uh, like its climatic changes over the thousands of years. And what's interesting is that during the 1300s, the Earth was depicted as having little to no ice caps. So
right.
could a flying craft of some kind, I mean, there wasn't any technology like we know today back then, but you know, could a flying craft of some kind been traveling up above at that time, mapping the whole area, and voila, we have the Perry's Reef map.
To further elaborate on that, Laurie, very interesting points raised regarding the civilization, well, said civilization of Atlantis. As we know, we all know Plato's dialogue where he said, you know, Atlantis sunk in one night. We're still looking for that lost city, but I mean, we have megalithic sites underwater which are not being investigated, which should be being investigated. We have, you know, the Yonaguni coast of Japan. We have a sunken megalithic city. We see physical evidence of this. It's not geological. That it's, you know, artificial in nature. I don't know if you guys are aware of Charles Hapgood's Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings, which was published in 1965. And an interesting point raised inside of this book regarding the Piri Reis map, and it goes back to what you said about the Atlanteans, Laurie. They cover the Piri Reis map in great detail, and here's the smoking gun. Charles Hapgood and his team of students at the University of New Hampshire studied the map and found numerous anomalies, such as use of mercatorial projection, I can never say that word, along with the inclusion of pre-ice age Antarctica. So what's happened here is that they've tested, how do I explain that? You know, basically this isn't they're saying that this isn't the only map that depicts you know, the Earth as it is today, so to speak. There are numerous numbers of maps, just like the Piri Reis map, that just aren't being looked at or investigated thoroughly.
Yeah, I've heard of those, that there are other maps like the Piri Reis map, but for some reason the Piri Reis map is the one that gets all the fame.
Yeah.
No. Well, so I mean, we really can't discuss this topic without bringing up the novel again that Joe and I wrote, Battle Planet AD, Relic of the Gods, because not that we're going for some kind of shameless promotion here, but nor give a spoiler, but it is all about alien artifacts, big ones. So absolutely. Of course it is fiction, but can you imagine how the world would react if something like an alien ship came to light after being buried somewhere for thousands of years, like in the sands of Egypt or down in the jungles of you know, Peru or whatever? I honestly believe that there are, or there may well be a ship of significant size buried miles below us, because the pyramids were buried underneath the ground at one time and they were discovered. And so this thing is possibly out there further down and it's waiting to be discovered. So Aaron, if it could be that if we have found small artifacts like the ones we're talking about now on the show, then it could be possible that there are much bigger ones, like say an alien spacecraft, or some type of flying vehicle somewhere out there, wouldn't you say?
Well, just to rewind, Laurie, back to our earlier conversation earlier on the show, when we were talking about new bait figurines. So that there's evidence within the soil, within Earth, that there was a mass flood somewhere during antiquity. So within the same region as the figurines, evidence was found within layers of soil to support mass floods of epic proportions, as referenced in, you know, the Epic of Gilgamesh, for example. I'm not sure if you've read the Epic of Gilgamesh. It's a fascinating text. It's a 12-tablet text, which is just mind-blowing to say the least. Of course, all of this is just put down to, you know, it's mythology, you know, great storytellers of our ancient world. You know, scholars put all of this, like I said, put all of this down to mass hysteria, and that they state that the soil samples that throw up evidence of a great flood spoken of in mostly all ancient civilizations and all cultures you speak to, the mainstream academia state that, nothing to see here. It's just where the Euphrates and Tigris rivers burst their banks.
Well, yeah, I mean, we do know about the story of the Great Flood. There is that myth that exists in all cultures that there was a massive flood, and yeah, flood would bury a lot. I mean, there's a lot of things that could very well be buried very deep.
Exactly.
even with our ground penetrating radar, it's not perfect. It does miss things, um, even something big. So is it a matter of time before something large is found? Yeah, and then that's what the novel is kind of centered around, the idea that we do find some huge spacecraft buried, and that would change the understanding of human history dramatically.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, again, I say personally because I don't want to speak for anyone else. I personally believe that they've unearthed many, like in the hundreds of anomalous relics and perhaps ancient spacecraft that came down in our remote past. I personally believe that our government is in possession of those ancient artifacts, and we're only seeing a small fraction of what they have unearthed, and they're just giving us a little tidbits.
And of course, and with the idea of discovering something big like an alien spaceship buried somewhere, also comes the understanding that any government on Earth would take the most drastic measures to guard it and keep it in top secret. And our novel kind of touches on that idea
I
as
was just about to say that.
yeah. So any information to make its way into the societal discourse would be scanty, inaccurate, and conspiratorial at best. Um, we are all aware of the clandestineness that surrounds the things like our country's space program and the black projects and classified,
We knew they exist.
military
It's not.
operations, particularly when it comes to the stories that have been told about Area 51 as a place where alien spacecraft is hidden and being reverse engineered.
They denied Area 51 for years, and now is common knowledge. So yeah.
So if I were to take a bet, a smoking gun artifact like that would never see the light of day in the public eye. As usual,
Well,
the audience must decide upon the veracity of such a belief. Guys, any closing statements here?
Well, I think we talked about the Baltic Sea anomaly. That right there, the public, they're not telling the public everything, and listen to that episode, and because that could be a spacecraft on the bottom of the Baltic Sea floor.
that's the one that eerily resembles the Millennium Falcon in Star Wars, right?
Yes,
the
correct. Yep.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is the one.
Yeah. Yeah, I've not done as much research as I probably should on it, but I've obviously seen the imagery of it. It just reminded me of the Millennium Falcon in Star Wars. Yeah, which is
Well,
strange.
they're saying it's a rock formation, but they don't know what's underneath it. So yeah, while the actual shape, the anomaly could very well be a rock, there's they don't know what was underneath it. They haven't been able to test enough or get enough of a sounding or a measurement to determine what is underneath it.
Coincidentally, Joe, they never do they?
No, but the hypothesis being that the rock formation is on top of something else, something perhaps artificial, whatever that might be. So guys, obviously there are dozens, if not hundreds, of so-called out-of-place artifacts from all around the world, and we've only touched on a very few.
Scratch the
This-
surface, likewise, on
Yeah, this was a great discussion that I think focused on the clues, the physical remnants that reveal the possibility that our ancient ancestors had indeed come into contact with extraterrestrials. The common feature is that when we examine them more closely, we see that they are so exceptional that they may actually be more correctly called alien artifacts. They don't belong here on Earth, or they don't belong on Earth for that point in time when they should have been constructed. So are they representative of a technology existing in the distant past as being more advanced than we've ever realized? And could they be the evidence that has been sought after that provides proof of alien intelligence? And I suppose we have to say only time will tell.
Yeah, you're correct, Joe. Time may one day reveal other artifacts, which we talked about, that will make the heads of archaeologists just spin. So, Aaron, hey, it was indeed a pleasure to have you join us again and for another intriguing topic. And well, I mean, we could talk about this all night. I know, but all three of us are quite tired. But thank you for taking the time out from your busy schedule and from going to bed at a decent hour to come
No,
on the
that's
podcast. But yeah, give us your final thoughts and
a real quick one, Laurie. as you were saying about the artifacts becoming unearthed over time, is interesting that the as the ice sheets are starting to melt in Antarctica, there there's talk of anomalous artifacts sort of poking their head through the ice sheets as we speak. So as the ice melts, only one can imagine what what's gonna
Right.
what's gonna.
Like I said, time will tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, guys.
Oh yeah, I was just saying it was a pleasure having you on, Aaron, as always. And for anyone out there who hasn't already done so, check out Aaron's social media pages and follow him on his Facebook page, Ancient Astronaut Theory, where he posts posts a plethora of insightful and intriguing stories from all over the world about these tremendous discoveries that are being made every day in the field of ufology. So that will do it for us tonight. We hope you enjoyed the show and that you will ponder the possibilities as to the otherworldly origins of these relics that we've discussed. And on our next episode, Laura, you and I are going to go over the appearing and disappearing monoliths that have been seen around the world, kind of a recent phenomena. Of our listeners have been requesting that we do a show about them, and we will do just that for the next one. So until then, send us a message on our website, alientalkpodcast.com. Check out our Facebook page and watch our most recent YouTube video about the Vatican archives. Very interesting. And we also have our book trailer uploaded to the YouTube page as well.
Great trailer, guys.
Thanks.
Be sure to give us a like and subscribe to our channel, and it will help us out greatly. And thank you all. Stay curious.
We hope you enjoyed the program. Please give us a thumbs up by clicking like and share this video with your friends. Help us spread the word of our ancient alien origins and subscribe to the channel. Alien Talk Podcast.